Welcome to the Game Deflators Podcast, Season 2, Episode 4. I am joined by our co-host, Ryan.
Thanks, John. So here at the Game Deflators Podcast, we talk about games that we've recently picked up, games that we're currently playing, and then we always close out with our inflation-deflation challenge. This week, we'll be discussing Monster in My Pocket.
Yep, that's right, man. So Monster in My Pocket on the NES is what we're looking to discuss this week. So those of you that haven't listened before, the inflation-deflation segment, we pick a game that's on my shelf or a game that we can get our hands on. We play it for a few hours, and then we actually go ahead and look up the value of that game after the fact and see, was it worth that, or is it not worth the value that's currently selling at? Typically, with cartridge-based games, we're going to go based off of the loose cartridge price point, whereas with a lot of other titles, we'll kind of dictate, hey, here's what it's going for, complete in box with just a manual or just a game itself. So opening up this week, we're going to discuss some of our recent pickups. So as I've kind of mentioned in previous podcasts, I've been waiting for my copy of Owlboy on the Switch to come in. The game was obviously released earlier in the year, but there was a collector's edition that was supposed to come out in July and was delayed all the way into mid-October. So I was crossing my fingers it wouldn't breach into November. But I'll do a quick assessment on that collection. It was about $70 is what it came out to. Obviously waited 3 to 4 months, so I was anticipating this thing to be good. Right off the bat, it comes in like an 11 by 17 hard case. Nice hard cardboard with a matte finish on it, with the actual logo of Owlboy in gold on the front with the red case. And that immediately kind of struck me as, pretty nice. I don't know where the heck I'm going to put this thing, but overall, it's a pretty sweet looking case. Within it slips out a nice big piece of plastic, and we've got a manual in there. We have the actual game itself. There is a notebook, which God knows I will never use. Ryan, you and I both talked about that earlier. There's no way in hell I'm going to use a random little 4x6 hardcover notebook. It's just not happening, so it's going to sit there and collect dust. There's a pretty cool pin set, as well as a couple coins that come with it. And it comes in a nice little snap case with some foam on the inside to protect the coins. There's a certificate of authenticity. Again, as I might have said in the past, these were limited to 6,000 per console. I want to say that it was based on regions. So, for example, 6,000 North America and then 6,000 in Europe, but I'm not entirely sure on that. I just know that I have 3557 out of 6,000 on my certificate. It also comes with a sticker sheet, and it comes with a soundtrack of the game itself. Issues I have with this collector's edition set, the manual that comes with the game does not fit in the actual case. So I don't know where the heck I'm supposed to put this thing. Generally, you would want to slip that manual within the game case itself. It's a very nice manual, but it's just a little too wide to go into the Switch case itself. So that's kind of a bummer. Makes me wish actually I got the PS4 version for that reason alone. But the cool thing is with it being on the Switch, it's portable. So if I'm going to bed, I can kind of boot it up and play before going to sleep. So that's pretty nice. The pin set itself, the foam doesn't hold the coins in all the way. So that was kind of a negative for me. But overall, it's pretty cool looking. And then as far as, things like, I discussed a notebook. I'm never going to use that. Stickers, I'm not going to use that. So, from a value perspective, $70, I would be on the edge to say it's worth it. I'd say it's probably worth maybe about 55 to 60 on that. I would have liked to have paid a little less, but the limited aspect of this title, or not title, but limited aspect of this collector's edition was more of a selling point, I guess, for a lot of people, including myself. So that is my pickup for the week, man. I didn't have anything else crazy come up. Did you have any pickups?
So yeah, this week I didn't actually get any new games, but what I did get is a new case and some accessories for my Switch. I went ahead, I picked up the Waterfield City Slicker case. It's real nice. I've spent a lot of time checking out reviews and trying to find a case that I would really enjoy. I've had a couple different ones and they just never really work quite for what I need. It's a really nice nylon with a leather cover. It's got a zipper back to it that has a nice big pocket for storing things. The inside super soft. It's got 2 pouches on the inside and really plush, safe foam interior. You got slots for 5 games and some nice magnetic clasps to hold everything together. It's real sharp. It's made in San Francisco by hand. It's a premium case. It's like $100 for the case, which, I mean, it's a lot, but for me personally, and having something that is going to protect my console and is going to be sharp looking and able to carry everything that I want to carry, it's really good. I've got my Switch inside. I have a 6-foot USB cable that has the USB-C, the micro USB, and lightning adapters on it so that I can charge all my devices on the go. I've got a 10,000 milliamp hour Anchor power core battery, and I still have room to carry a few more things. I've got my Joy-Cons in there, got an extra cleaning cloth. It really is. I'm really happy with the purchase. I'm kind of a bag guy. I've got a lot of bags, and this makes me feel like I've got something unique and special that really stands out, but it really carries well. And the form factor's nice. The size is appropriate, and it's not too cumbersome. And I could just pick this up, and I've got everything I need with me for my day in one case, freeing up my pockets except for my phone and my keys. And that's really what I look for in something that I'm going to be using a lot and carrying a lot. And I feel like it's going to give me more opportunity to use my Switch on the go as opposed to some of the other cases that I have, because I don't have to unzip anything. I don't have to worry about, oh, the Joy-Cons aren't being protected because this is only for the screen. And it looks, like I said, it looks sharp. Like I can go out to a restaurant and I could set this, down on the side of the table, and it doesn't look like, I've got a big Mario emblem, or I've got something, some big plastic tacky looking case. So I'm really into it. I've talked about it for probably longer than most people are going to talk about a case, but if you're interested in something nice and premium, I would definitely look into Waterfield.
It sounds good, man, and it has that nice new leather smell that, oddly enough, I really enjoy. It's kind of like getting a new pair of shoes, actually. No, actually, it's a pretty nice case. So we'll actually link that within the YouTube description so you guys can see that on here. So I'll go into my recently played and recently beat Elemental Gimmick Gear here in a bit, but I definitely want to open up with you and your recently played. So you actually tried out the new Mario Party. Given the last few releases of Mario Party that have come out on, I guess, the Wii U, really, was a bad one. And I guess the most recent one on the Wii, I didn't enjoy too much. But you actually had a lot of fun with the newest copy of that, didn't you?
Yeah, so I went with my friend Zach to pick it up this week and give it a go. I've seen some YouTubers playing it, the guys from Normal Boots and Peanut Butter Gamer on his channel. And, it looked like a ton of fun. And I've been a casual fan of Mario Party for a while. And after, like John was saying, the disappointment in the everybody's in a car kind of system they tried out before, it's nice to see it go back to the classic Mario Party formula. And, we had a lot of fun. We got our asses handed to us by Luigi on hard mode 2 times in a row, but it was a ton of fun.
I do have to ask, is Waluigi in the game?
Yeah, Waluigi is in there. So, fingers crossed for Smash.
Yeah, man, I can definitely see it. So, as far as, there's no car anymore. So what are they doing? Or have they gone back to the classic star mode? Like, how many coins are you needing to get stars? Like, what have they done with that? Are there any improvements or really things that have drawn it back to where it's maybe not that cool? What's your take on that?
So first off, the stars are now 10 coins instead of 20. You start with 5 coins instead of 10. So it's kind of close to the same. I mean, it does feel like a game where you can pick up a lot of stars very quickly. Again, referencing those playthroughs I watched, I mean, I think at the end of one of those games, I think there were like 16 stars in play total between everybody. We never got that high in the games that I played, but it's it definitely feels like it's adapted more for a portable experience, being on the go, not having as long of a playtime, even though the 10 turn minimum for a game does take right around an hour. Like they've got estimations for how many turns is going to equal to about how much time. And I mean, portability on the go, like if you have an hour to kill, you could definitely get through that. But the mini games themselves are really, they feel like I want to play them longer. Like a lot of them seem like they wrap up, it's like quick 30 seconds, but I guess that just keeps the game moving and not really feeling like it's bogged down too hard.
Did you actually play the game on 2 little Joy-Cons, like one each, or did you both have your Joy-Cons like the set from each respective Switch when you're playing?
No, as far as I could tell, the whole game is only individual Joy-Cons for controllers. There's no Pro Controller support, and due to the need for the HD Rumble in some of the games. Now, as far as getting around the board, they ditched the cart, and they've done a lot of cool things to update and make, some new variations. So you've got your whole cast of characters. You've got a bunch of new characters. You've got Goomba and Monty Mole as playable characters, which is a little weird. Bowser's a playable character for the first time. And
well, Bowser was technically playable in the Mario Party on the Wii U. You just couldn't use him within the actual board portion, but you could play as Bowser as one person, if you recall.
Oh, I never played that one, so okay, correction. But the cool thing is every character has their own die. So you've got the chance each turn to use either a normal die or you can use the character specific die. And those are all totally different. Like Bowser's has 2 -3 coins. So you lose 3 coin if you roll that and you don't move. But he also has a 10 on his die. Shy Guy has a 0 and 5 4s on his die. So you can move real consistently. And there's everybody's die is different. So you have a lot more options for how you're going to get around the board. Now there's also new spaces on the boards and new items that give you an ally. So when you get an ally, it randomly selects another character that was left in the pool to join you on the board. And you also get to choose their die. So you can get, I think, up to 3 allies. And so you get a whole bunch of different ways you can move around the board. Not only do you get their die, though, once you roll, they also roll a die that has 1s and 2s on it, and that number is added to your total. So, like, you could potentially roll like a 16 or more without even having to use items, depending on what character you're using.
So when you say not have to use items, the items, I would assume, still remain in the game, and there's a variety of different things that you can use based on what you've seen?
Yeah. I mean, you still have your mushrooms and stuff, but instead of giving you extra die to roll, they just add a flat or subtract a flat.
Okay, I got you, man. Yeah, it sounds like in your experience, it's pretty much taken the go at each other's throats, sort of classic Mario Party, and they've kind of brought it down to a level where everybody feels equal in a sense. So you have those handicaps with those dice, the character dice. The stars are now much easier to get, so there's more in play versus I think the last time we played was a 3-hour session, and I think only 6 or 7 stars were put in play within that 3-hour session. So not everybody got a star, even throughout the entire 3-hour time that we played. I think this was Mario Party 3 that we were playing on the N64. And so, I don't know, man, based on what you've described so far, it sounds like it's more of a a friendly environment for a Mario Party versus the I want to kill you at the end of this type of situation. But tied into that, I've heard a lot of negative things as far as the selection of boards, that there's just not a whole lot of boards available, and that it's likely Nintendo opening up to be able to, a cash cow essentially for more boards through DLC, and obviously not producing a, an expansion included with the actual game, like a game of the year type of thing. What's your experience so far in the actual boards?
So I've only played 2 of the boards, and they're fun. I just wish that they were more fun. Like when I look back at some of the older Mario parties, I mean, the Spaceland really stands out in my mind as something that had a lot of style and a lot of flair, and it's like everything that was going on there really felt like it was a part of that tone. Your characters wore like a costume to like blend in with the environment. And these boards, while they're visually they look really good, but I mean, you've got only 3 to start, and then you unlock a 4th, which I haven't seen, so I'm not going to comment on that one. But the fruit islands, they're fruit islands, and as far as what's going on there, it's just like it doesn't feel as imaginative. Like I want like a little bit more fun and play out of the developers to kind of match that kind of tone that used to be there. And also the boards they seem really small. I don't know if I just am imagining the older boards to be bigger than I remember, but like there's just not as much gimmick in there. There's not as much like happening spaces that do things that affect, on one of the boards you hit a happening space and it just moves 2 thwomps. And yeah, you move the thwomps and change the path, but you could just pay the thwomps, I think 3 coins or 5 coins to move out of the way. Like it's hardly impactful, and it's barely changes anything. Like it's not as fun as I think that they could have been with it. And with the small size of the boards, you can really get around quick. But I would have liked to see, maybe depending on how long you're going to play, more customization options. I would like to see, some more depth.
Well, that's for Nintendo coins. That's exactly what that's for. So, dude, overall, I mean, what are you gonna rate this game and the little bit of experience you had? I guess a few hours of gameplay.
I mean, it's despite all of the things that I wish it was, it's Mario Party, and it's fun. And, if you've got a group of people that love Mario Party, or you're going to have a party and you want to get a group of people into Mario Party, this is definitely a great place to jump in and get on that. So, I mean, I haven't bought it. I was playing with my friend when he picked it up, but I'm probably going to pick myself up a copy too. I'd definitely give it like, I don't know, 7.5. It's fun. It's gonna be good fun, and it's gonna be something that you can always kill some time with, and just sit back and have a fun time trying to kill your friends.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I might pick that up down the road as well. It's a little cheaper. So my recently played items, I'll start out with Elemental Gimmick Gear. So last few podcasts, that's what I was playing. Finally beat the game. So those of you that may not have heard before, it's pretty much this post-apocalyptic world where you have this guy that was from 5,000 years in the past. They ended up finding him in these ruins, and then he ends up waking up a few hundred years later, and he has a special EGG, so Elemental Gimmick Gear, and they literally look like an egg. And I know you've been dying for me to say egg. So it's this crazy old Elemental Gimmick Gear, and he goes around and you just kind of, it's this action style RPG where you're pretty much just punching monsters for the most part. You have a arm that extends out. You could pick up these magic stones throughout the game as like abilities where you can freeze things and put things on fire and have giant ray beams coming out of like radiation and such. So there's a lot of cool aspects to it. The gameplay itself is pretty quick. The game length is about, I think I put 13 or 14 hours into it. You can really, there's a lot of items that you can actually get. So I actually didn't even 100% this game. There's actually a lot of things like additional upgrades to your energy tank, which your energy does deplete every time you've gotten hit or you're doing a spin move. It depletes. And there's also different like power cells and such you can pick up for defense and increasing your magic stone capacity and your actual attack itself. So in the time that I played it, or the 13 or so hours of this game, the story was kind of lackluster in a sense up until like the last 2 hours of the title. You're pretty much going through like this tower, just kind of in a sense, just solving puzzles, and you pretty much come to the end of this tower, end up finding like this pirate, and he ends up getting arrested and placed in the town and that you're in. I forget the name of the town offhand, but he gets placed in there and they're telling him he needs to repent and whatnot, and they're shaming him and he's tied up and whatnot. And as you kind of progress through like these two chambers, it literally takes place in like two towers. One of them is like a basement setting and the other one is a fog tower essentially. And you shortly find out, and spoiler alerts here, I guess, for in addition to the ones I already did, you end up finding out that your name is Beta and you're part of an advanced civilization that moved over to the moon after a major world war pretty much destroyed the Earth. And while you're on the moon, your team developed a purifying system that was placed on Earth, and it was supposed to pretty much make it habitable again. But what ends up happening is this purifying system goes completely crazy and decides for itself that to purify the world, it needs to get rid of all human existence and create a superior being that would essentially take over the world and make it habitable again. So the Psycho Mother, in a sense, is what is the main enemy towards the end. So you obviously progress through the moon colony. You go through this big basement, and you end up finding Psycho Mother and speaking with her, and she ends up going completely crazy and creates her superior being who's supposed to pretty much wipe out the entire Earth and restart fresh. But obviously there's humans there. So the overall end game here is you battle this superior being, and it's a super quick, easy battle. I mean, it's just patterns at that point, and trying to solve like where he's going to hit you and what he's going to do next. And you can use your magic stones, just kind of spam him to beat him. But when all is said and done, I guess it was, for a game that I actually enjoyed the musical scores and enjoyed the puzzles and gameplay, it was really lackluster towards the end. Major spoiler alert for the ending here. It's pretty much once you beat him, the Psycho Mother is destroyed. He's destroyed, this, superior being. And it has a message on like taking care of the Earth. So the entire thing is like, just, it screams like Green Party politicians made this game. It's absolutely crazy how like the end of it's just like preaching about global warming and, making sure that we take care of the Earth. And then it just kind of cuts and that's it. So I wasn't a huge fan of the ending. I mean, I got the messaging and it made sense for the story and what I was doing throughout the entire game. But honestly, it just, dude, I think that game right now is selling for what, like $65 on a complete copy. And I would have to say it is 100% not worth $65 to pick up that game complete. Ryan's over here looking up what the loose copy goes for, and maybe that can kind of salvage things. Yeah, so $37 for a loose copy. I would honestly, if I was to buy this game not discounted through the means that I typically get my games, I would at most pay $15 to $20 for a loose copy, at the very most. Maybe $30 for a complete in box. I would never, in my mind, pay $65 for this game complete. So that's the game I recently beat. Going into my actively playing games, I decided to go ahead and immediately start playing Owlboy. So this game, on the other hand, I think is worth it. Now, as I said earlier in the podcast, I paid about $70. Well, I did pay $70 plus tax for the complete edition of this, which included the pins, the notebook, sticker pad, and everything else that I discussed. And so the game itself retails for $30 new. I want to say it's hit some discounts as of late. So the price point may even be lower than that. You could probably pick it up for 15, $20. You don't have to get a collector's edition by all means. That was just a preference of mine. But the game itself, I mean, for 15, $20, if you're to grab this on a console and haven't played it on the PC, it's totally worth that price point in the few hours I've played. I want to say the total gameplay is supposed to range around 8 to 10 hours of gameplay. But so far, the art style is great. It's definitely a retro style game in terms of the look. The story itself is pretty awesome. So you play as a mute Owlboy named Otis, and everybody in the town like just absolutely despises you. They think you're worthless, and you should be shunned and not take part in their society. But yet you're kind of like the hero behind the scenes, and nobody recognizes you for it, at least in the few stages I've been in. And some of the gameplay that you have, you can fly, you can dodge with Otis, you can pick up a variety of items and toss them like bombs. Right now, I've got two characters I can play as, Alphonse and Getty. Getty has kind of like a quick burst, like laser ball shooting that he does, and then Alphonse, he's a pirate and has like a shotgun that also works as like a torch to burn down obstacles. So in that span of time, so far I've enjoyed the gameplay on it. And then the story, as I said, you've got these other characters, you're shunned, and you're making your way through, essentially up to this like special capital city called Advent. And a spoiler here, but Advent gets destroyed by this crazy pirate. I forget the name offhand. I think it's Maelstrom is the pirate's name. And he just completely wrecks this town. Everybody in this town or capital has to go back to, I think it's called the Vale, is the city or the town that Otis is from. And they all go there, and they're all refugees. And that's where the real adventure starts at this point. And so that's actually what I've just gotten into. But in that time frame, I would say if I had paid 10 or 15 bucks for this game, loose, or not loose, but 10 or 15 bucks just right off the bat, no collector's edition, just picked it off the shelf. Right now, I would feel that game is totally worth that price point. Ryan, you have any questions on my experience of Owlboy so far, man?
I've seen some content on Owlboy before, and it definitely harkens back to those nostalgic retro feels that a lot of people in the market, especially indie market, have been going for a lot lately. And I mean, it's the same thing that really drew me in deep into the Messenger and got me through that. And seeing what I've seen of Owlboy, it seems like it's really fun, and it's got that same kind of pull. I just want to hear more about the story after you beat it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm truly enjoying it. As I said, the story, I mean, really what I've kind of discussed is the general gist of it. Town gets blown up. You get back into the city that you're at, and they're like, we're going to start an adventure. We're going to go defeat these pirates. So that's definitely where I'm at right now. And then something to keep in mind is this game, they said, was inspired by the Mario Tanuki suit. So I think the game itself took around 7 or 8 years to develop by D-Pad Studios. And their inspiration apparently was a Tanuki suit, in that you can spin and whip around with your Owlboy Otis, and the items, I mean, obviously you don't pick up items of Tanuki suit in Super Mario Bros. 3 outside of like shells and such. But overall, I can definitely see that comparison. The flying part, obviously, it's because he's an owl, and that's not what a Tanuki suit would do for the most part, outside of if you had a little P symbol. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely cool so far, man. So in talking about my collector's edition, one thing I think you've experienced it and I've experienced it now is what GameStop has been doing with collector's editions. So I'm not a huge fan of this for the most part, mainly because of the issue I've had with scalping and such in the past. So I went in the other day and they said, "Hey, do you have any pre-orders or anything you want to pre-order at this point?" And I said, "Yeah, can you give me some more information on the Switch version, or not Switch version, but the new Super Smash Bros. And the collector's edition? I'm just curious." And he's like, "Oh, well, we don't do pre-orders in store for that. It's online only." Well, my issue with that is, you know, first off, online, we've already had numerous issues with Nintendo in the past and scalpers pretty much cleaning out a pre-order within a span of what is it, like 15, 20 seconds at times, along with everybody else just kind of hammering through. So I don't like that idea. And the other thing is, I can afford it, granted, but anybody that goes in there and wants to just put down $25 for a special edition game, they can't do it because Nintendo's, or not Nintendo, but GameStop say, no, you got to pay for the entire thing up front and you can't do it in store. So it's a little frustrating. I mean, from, any gamer really, I mean, especially kids that go in there and they want to pre-order a title and it can't because they either have to beg mom and dad to buy the entire thing up front, which I think is like 80 or 90 bucks, if I'm correct. It's actually probably more. It's probably like 100. So, a quick $100 for a family to go ahead and pre-order this, or you let a kid, put down $25 and then, they're kind of set and they can chip away as it comes along. I mean, in my mind, that just defeats the entire reason for pre-ordering a game. And then, yeah, Ryan just pulled it up and, on eBay right now. Yeah, but I mean, that's a good point. On eBay right now, it's $150 for a pre-order of the same game, and some even sitting at 270 something. So that's kind of frustrating. I mean, goes to scalpers right away, and GameStop doesn't care because they're selling the game. So have you had any experiences like that recently, man?
Yeah, so I know we've talked in the past about we're going to do a challenge versus each other, picking up the Let's Go editions of Eevee or Pikachu, one each for Switch. And when I saw the collector's edition of the console coming out, I was, nostalgia pulling at my heels. I was into the idea of having a Pokemon themed Switch, and I thought it would be a fun thing to get. It's $400, but it comes with a copy of the game. It comes with the Pokeball Plus controller and, unique colored Joy-Cons, nice design on the back and a nice design on the dock. And I was like, what? I may splurge and check this out and have something fun. And then I went into GameStop to ask about it, and they said, you got to go online and you got to pay full price up front. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I have a Switch. If I was going to get a new Switch, I would want to play my Switch up until the day that I'm going to go get the new one and just be able to go in, trade mine in, and then pay the difference, after putting my money down. But there's no way 4 months before the game came out that I was going to sell my Switch and then put, an extra $250 down just to get some different colors and a new game. So I was real disappointed with that. And then as I've been seeing over time, there's more and more special editions of the Switch coming out. There's the Smash version coming out. They put out a Fortnite version, and now they have a Diablo 3 version, which is so weird. I mean, Diablo 3 is a good game, but it's like 7 years old and it only got one expansion, and nobody's still playing Diablo 3. I mean, it was kind of got a rebirth once they made it, couch co-op on Xbox and PlayStation, or no, I think it was just Xbox. I don't remember, but either way, it was pretty fun to be able to, mess around with your friends. But who's picking this up, and why are they coming out with a special edition? And there's a slew of special editions out there. There was the standard launch. They had the Splatoon. They had Mario. They had one that was really cool. I found they had a cardboard pack one, and the whole console's like cardboard color, but that was free for a prize through a contest. So, that wasn't publicly available. They have a Mario Tennis one, and most of these are just bundles. There's not actual differences, or if there is, it's, a unique color for the Joy-Cons or maybe a little bit of splash art on the dock. But in the past, the best collector's edition I've ever gotten, I got the Star Wars Connect bundle Xbox 360. I mean, it's all tricked out to look like R2-D2. It makes the R2 noises when the tray opens. It's even got my favorite little touch on the top of the tray. When you open it, it says, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And it's just like, oh, it's beautiful. It's got a C-3PO gold controller with like some exposed like wiring, like looking at the bottom of it. Like, that's a collector's edition. Like, that's above and beyond, and it's special, and it's designed, and it looks like something that's worth the money you put into it.
Yeah, and just looking at a lot of the collector's editions that have come out so far, honestly, what's stopping us from getting decals and slapping them on the front of our Switch consoles and on the back of our Switch and just buying? Because, I mean, a lot of these controllers, the colors are widely available online. Like, we're looking right now, and you can pick up yellow controllers very easily right now, or Joy-Cons, and slap on Pokemon logos on the front in silver, and you've got your special edition console. There's even third-party see-through holders for your Joy-Cons, so you can pretty much swap out your Joy-Cons and just have it in that old like see-through N64 style. So with there being so many options via the third-party market and even first-party through Nintendo, I really don't see the purpose in a lot of these special edition consoles. Now, I can say though, if I had not purchased a Switch early last year, or actually late 2 years when it first came out, I would be down to buy one of these, limited edition looking consoles. I mean, they do look pretty cool, but if I was to just say, yeah, I want to go ahead and swap it out so I can get, Pikachu and Eevee on the side of my, docking station, I just don't see the value in that in trading in a console. And on top of that, I think you were telling me that they're even discussing releasing an upgraded Switch, I think, not too long from now in 2019. So, God knows what that's going to have in it. And that already makes me feel like I've wasted my money on the current Switch. So, it'd be interesting to see what is put into this new Switch. Have you had any thought as to what you could want in a new Switch console?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super glad that I didn't wind up going with that upgrade to just a aesthetic difference. If they're going to come out with a new Switch in 2019, I would feel super ripped off buying a whole new Switch just to get duped out a year later by an upgrade. And I mean, I think an upgrade could be due. Like, I love my Switch. I think it's a great console, and I don't have a whole lot of complaints about it, but I've already looked into third-party accessories on an Indiegogo campaign. I can't remember exactly the name of the accessory, but it's a small adapter that you can plug into your USB-C at the bottom to give you Bluetooth support. Like, the fact that the Switch doesn't come with Bluetooth headphone support is ridiculous. I mean, most phones are kind of going the way of getting rid of the headphone jack. I can appreciate Nintendo wanting to keep that in for people because they're not, primarily a media thing. But like, if I'm playing the Switch and I'm out in public, like, I don't really want to be blasting it at everybody, on a train or a subway or wherever I'm at. So I don't carry corded headphones with me because all my other accessories I can Bluetooth connect to the audio. So I'd love to see that. The things that I've read said that they might be switching to a more appropriate screen, being in line with like cell phones and tablets, which are thinner and consume less power and have more could produce a higher quality image, though I'm not sure if they're actually going to update the tech inside. I mean, the tech inside of these, from what I've heard, is actually, a few years behind. And, the newer, more powerful tech obviously jacks the price up. And Nintendo's always been a company that wants to keep the cost down so that they get more money from the console itself, as opposed to selling the console at a major loss and trying to make up for it in accessories and games, which, they still clean house on. I mean, lots of people out there have pro controllers and extra sets of Joy-Cons, tons of first party games and accessories. And a lot of this stuff is, good enough for the console that it justifies them being able to put a little bit more into the hardware itself to make that console, a little bit thinner, a little bit better looking, and, conserve that power. Because, I mean, I had to buy that 10,000 milliamp hour battery bank, which is great so that I can charge, on the go, give me an extra almost 10 hours of life. But that small battery pack holds more power in it than the console itself by a great margin. So, there's a little bit of a trade-off here. Like, I would totally buy a new Switch, but I think I'm going to learn from this lesson and wait until a special edition version of the new Switch comes out.
Well, man, I kind of made that mistake with the Wii U. I purchased the Legend of Zelda edition, and it was a pretty cool console. I mean, I still love it and I still play it, but I don't know. This is kind of a guessing game in a sense with the special editions. As far as a new Switch is concerned, man, I mean, I would echo exactly what you said as far as what you would look to get and what they've said they would include. Not really trusting Nintendo just based on previous experiences that I've had with them. I would actually just go as far as saying that the technology that they're going to put in a new Switch console is likely going to be a year behind to keep that cost low, which is pretty unfortunate when you think about it. So, any other news that you want to chat about? I mean, I think we're pretty well covered on the actual news aspect today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was some other stuff out there this week, but this is mostly what I wanted to get on about. And I think from here, we'll just go straight into talking about Monster in My Pocket.
Yeah, so our inflation deflation this week is Monster in My Pocket. Ryan's done a little more research than I have on the history of this game, but just a little back-end story on it. Monster in My Pocket was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and a loose copy of this game is going for about $35, and complete is going for $95, which I think is absolutely ridiculous given our experience of his title. But we'll see in the inflation deflation what our thoughts are. So why don't you give us a little history on this game?
Okay, so Monster in My Pocket is based off of all things, a toy series made by Matchbox in the late 80s. They released up to 7 or 11 series, over 200 figures. Think Army Men or any of those, little small plastic figures that, you used to play with when you were a kid, because you could buy them in bulk and have like a whole army instead of having, just like one, big action figure. So they released those, and I guess that they were super popular because this spawned a whole franchise. Monster in My Pocket has the figures, a board game, trading card game, comic books, the video game, animated specials, and even a CGI series from 2003 released in the United Kingdom, and supposedly meant for release here in the US on Cartoon Network as well, but that never wound up going through. But the mammoth enterprise that is Monster in My Pocket and its intense history is pretty fun. It's not something I was expecting to happen. I thought this was just kind of like a weird one-off game. Like when you're playing it, you're small figures, appropriate to the size that's, all the other media is based around and the figures are. But like me and John both thought when we first started playing the game, like this has some real Indian in the cupboard vibes going on here, because you're running around in, full size environments, but you're like a little tiny figure on the shelf, standing on chairs and, desks running around.
Yeah, man, I got that vibe right away with this game. Really, I actually enjoyed this game. I don't know fully if you did, but the game actually came out in 1992, and it's a platformer style. It's single player or co-op. I want to say you have from just a base game, no cheats or Game Shark or anything like that. Each player has 3 lives, and then you have 3 continues throughout that. And it's actually made by Konami. We actually tried to do the Konami code at one point, but for some reason just could not get it to go. And it allows you to unlock, I want to say it was Frankenstein, if I'm correct, or another character. I don't remember. That's apparently what the Konami code does for this game. It allows for a 3rd playable character within the actual game. So I'll go into a little bit of the gameplay. The gameplay itself, as I said, it's a platformer, but it feels, in my opinion, very limited. It's fun, but it's definitely limited. Each character you can jump, double jump, and swipe. And then you can obviously duck down and do that type of thing. And then you could pick up things like there's keys and screws and other things that you could pick up throughout each level. And so that to me was just pretty limited. It wasn't like a Mario platformer, and I hate to compare it to Mario, but it wasn't like that style of a game where, you can spin with your Tanuki suit, or you could hop on something and grab it, or shoot fireballs or anything along those lines. It was just straight out, I think we played as a vampire and a werewolf, I want to say. Frankenstein, so that maybe the werewolf was the unlockable, if it actually is true. But we pretty much just had the ability to swipe, and that was it, and just progress through levels, and obviously have a slew of different enemies. So I felt that was very limited, and I wish there would have been a little bit more. The ease of the game, as far as I felt, was not Nintendo hard. And that being, we played it last week for a little bit after our recording of the podcast for season 2, episode 3. And we probably, within the span of like 20 minutes, got to like the second stage. And we're like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. Can't wait to play it next week. And then today we just kind of jumped into it. And within like the hour we played, got over to stage 5. And it was like, all right, yeah, if we would have played this for another hour, maybe 2, we would have definitely just beat the game outright, and probably could have beat it individually for the most part. The really cool thing, though, so actually going back into that, so the ease of it, I would say, is pretty enjoyable. It's a game you can pick up, play, and enjoy, and not feel like you're going to die at every corner. So that's pretty cool. The enemies themselves do get increasingly more difficult, or to increase in difficulty as you progress. So I want to say at like the 6th stage, you have like these mummy type statues that will chase you when your back is turned, but when you turn around, they run away. And then on top of that, you've got like things flying around you shooting laser beams at the exact same time. So Ryan actually jinxed me. I was actually blasting through that level, and the second he said, wow, man, you're blasting through this level, I started to die. So that was disappointing. So I hate you for that.
Yeah, the enemy variety is actually a really good part about the game, and it seems like they took good advantage of that vast amount of different characters that they had from their figure collections. So it's really well represented in the different enemy sprites and the different attacks and stuff. You've got sphinxes shooting fireballs, and wyverns carrying eggs to drop on you. You've got kind of like a Jack the Ripper kind of guy jumping and throwing daggers. There's all kinds of different enemies in different kinds of patterns. It's got a very kind of old school Castlevania way of laying out its challenges too. Like there's a part in, I think, the 2nd or 3rd level where you're underground in a sewer, and you have to float across a stretch of water like on a overturned can or something. And as you're going across, fish are jumping up out of the water, and you can't really dodge them very well or duck under them too well. And if they hit you, they'll knock you off the platform and you'll lose a life. But if you time it right, you can jump up and knock them right out of the air. So your challenges are laid out in such a way that you don't just clear through everything by just mindlessly moving forward. Like there's a lot of obstacles that you have to duck and hit to destroy the obstacle, or projectiles that are undestroyable. So you really have to use your platforming to get around the obstacles, and they're laid out in such a way that if you get the timing right, you can appropriately address everything to hang on to that precious health and lives to get through.
Yeah, man. Definitely agree with you on that. Like I said, the gameplay itself, I actually kind of, outside of the limited ability to do things, I do like the variety of enemies as you progress through each level and seeing the difficulty increase. And as you said, things throwing fireballs at you. You have, I think, one level where there's like a mechanical arm that stretches out from one of the enemies. So there's some pretty cool, things that are put in this game based on the series itself. So definitely a good point. And then, as we said, the world, the setting of this game is you're pretty much two small monsters in a real world type of atmosphere. So I think the level we ended up losing on was like an Asian world where it was the Oriental Garden, I think is what it was. And yeah, that's where we ended up closing it out and just saying, all right, we're out of continues. Let's go ahead and record. So any other thoughts that you had on this game, man? Obviously, you looked a lot more into the history than I did. I kind of focused more on the gameplay for this title. Anything else?
I liked it. I've not really played a whole lot of NES games, but as far as this one goes, it felt really good. It controlled really well. I really like the aesthetic of it. It's kind of fun playing as a Frankenstein, but you're not like this slow, bulky moving. Like you're like anime dashing around, and you've got like those like sweet poses. It's got a very influenced by that type of aesthetic in the game. That is a fun, different way to see some of these monsters in. And the, like we were talking earlier, the Indian in the cupboard kind of scale of being a small figure interacting with these everyday normal environments and having to navigate your way around coffee mugs and stacks of plates is a fun gameplay for this type of genre, and I really enjoyed it. But as far as $35 for a loose copy, I mean, like we said, it only took us a couple of playthroughs and we got to the second to last level in an hour. So as much as I liked it, I think that it's not quite worth the $35 for a loose copy. I might be persuaded to pick up one for, I don't know, 10, 15. Like if it was something that I liked enough that I could replay a few times, or have somebody come over and it's like, hey, what do you want to do? I don't know. Let's just have a couple beers and play some Monster in My Pocket, because you can get through it in not too long of a time. John's the collector, so I don't know how much it's worth to him in his collection, but I'm going to go ahead and pass on this one.
So I'm going to take the opposite approach in a sense. I'm not saying $35 worth. Definitely not worth that in my opinion. But if it's available, GameStop typically has this game for $30, through their retro stuff. And they do have frequent flash sales on retro. So if you can pick up the game through GameStop for, $20-25, I would think it might be worth picking up at that point. I want to say I paid maybe 3 or 4 years ago for this game. So, given the rate of inflation and everything else that's kind of come with these games over recent years, I would say if you picked it up for 20, maybe at the very highest 25, if you were that desperate, it would be worth the playthrough at that point. But I would go ahead and say that this game is inflated. And based on what Ryan has pulled up for me, this game was selling, that doesn't look to be right because it says 41 cents. But it has risen quite a bit in the last 3 years. I'd say somewhere around double, it looks like, on here. So, yeah. Um, well, I guess that kind of closes out our inflation deflation for this. So, Ryan appears to be on the deflation side of things. I am also on the deflation side of this. So, we're going to go ahead and take a pass overall on the price point. Gameplay wise, definitely worth it. Now, a little sneak peek into next week. So, we're kind of going with a Halloween theme since it is October. So, Monsters in My Pocket. And we're kind of going back and forth on the next title. We're going to go ahead and play Porky Pig's Haunted Adventure on the Super Nintendo. Now, Ryan, you don't know this, man, but this is a game that I played a lot when I was a kid because it was just a super cheap game, and I was able to pick it up at a Blockbuster for like $2 when I was a kid. So it was totally worth it for me to pick that up when I was younger and play through it, and I played the hell out of it. So I'm definitely going to have a little bit of nostalgia going back and forth with this one. Given the gameplay that you've probably looked at already since we decided on this game, what are your initial thoughts? Like, what are you expecting?
I'm expecting some rollicking adventures with my favorite pig. I love Looney Tunes, and I've got a whole bunch of nostalgia for watching those old school cartoons, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, you're definitely gonna like it. Actually, it's quite the game. For I think it's $5 right now that you can grab it for. So yeah, why don't we look that up while we've got everything? Go to this website right here, man. Yeah, just type it in there, and we'll see what the average price point is right now, provided Ryan can spell Porky Pig right. So right now, Porky Pig is sitting at exactly $5. Now, I hate to be that podcast where we're gonna, potentially assist in the boosting up of prices on games, but for $5, you can't go wrong on this game. It's definitely worth it for that price point. I mean, a movie's going to get you 2 hours and cost you double. Even if you play this game for an hour and say, you know what, it sucks, it's still, I think it's worth $5 at that point. So I guess we'll find out, man.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning into the podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. So this has been John
and Ryan,
and we're the Game Deflators.